can't describe the pleasure this is for me to be here. The last time I was here, I told you that I thought, that day, the 13,000, really convinced us, we were going to make this work. And but even then, I couldn't have imagined how the year would play out, how we would set attendance records and sponsorship records and viewing records, and so our media strategy was a success. But of course, the thing that made it work really was what I said opening day. We got the hockey right, and that's because of Jayna and her staff. We didn't know our playoffs till after the last game on the last day. Who could have imagined that we'd put together a system that would have worked out that perfectly? You see how close and competitive the playoffs have been. And as exciting as this is for all of us, we can't wait to get started on year 2, because we know with all summer to prepare, it's going to be even better.
When we kicked off this league, we had a few goals, and at least on the hockey side, and one of them was to create parity across the league. And through the draft and the player dispersal, the player signings that we put in place, we were able to do that. And to Stan's point, I don't think we could have wrote the script any better the way it played out and came down to the last game of the regular season to decide who was in the playoffs. We certainly achieved that. Secondly, innovation and creativity was a priority for us, that we wanted to find ways to improve the game, to make it more engaging for fans, to make it fun. We didn't want to change hockey and the traditionalism of hockey, but we wanted to do things a little bit differently. And so implementing the jailbreak rule, implementing the pick your own opponent, the gold plan, all of those things are new. But I think, right now, and of course we're going to debrief postseason, but right now the response from all of those things has been overwhelmingly positive. So we will continue to try to be creative, think outside the box, and present the game in new ways to people. And then, now we're getting through the playoffs, but then, we just announced today our draft and our award show. Really exciting things there as well to start building towards season 2. Have new players enter into the league. The next draft class is incredibly deep, incredibly strong, skilled players that are going to enter this league and make it better. And then, of course, the award show, where we get to highlight the amazing performances we saw this year from a number of players across the league. So excited to be here now for the next 2 or 3 games. And really, it's been a remarkable, amazing journey this last number of years, but really this last 8 or 9 months. And as Stan said, I don't think, I could have envisioned this playing out the way it did, and the excitement around this and the response from our fans and response from media. And so we're just thrilled with where it's at. And I know that this is gonna wrap up in a really great way in the next number of days.
Hey, where will that draft and award show be held?
The drafts and awards will be back here in Minnesota in June.
I can't tell you how exciting it has been working with these players. As you know, this whole league started because of our agreement with players. We added more players to that mix. The goal was to make them feel like they were treated as professionals. And I haven't had one yet this year who didn't tell me that that's exactly how they feel. So that's really important to us, that our players feel that this is as special as we do. I get a lot of stuff from players. Gratitude is not always the thing I get from players, but it is like the universal theme with this group of players. And that's why it's been even more fun than I thought. Well, I never thought it was going to be fun. I knew it was going to be hard, but I thought it would be worthwhile. And after my last trip here, I knew we were going to make it. On the business side, we didn't have our business staff in place till about 60 days before the season started. So we have a lot that we can still do. The most obvious one was merchandise. Having, the amount of inventory that we needed was a challenge for us. Getting an online business started in 2 countries, that was a challenge. So all these 2 country problems are different. than other leagues. So by the end of the season, we did really well on merchandise, but we have more coming and more designs and greater inventory. The one good thing is we sold everything we could make. I mean, it was just flying off the shelves when we could get it to arenas. And online, the business has been strong also. Those things are challenging when they're startups. And as I said, they're startups in 2 countries. So we know how to do it now. It's going to get a lot better going forward.
And I think, what everybody is waiting for is names and logos. So that's one big thing that's coming. So I think that'll be really exciting to be able to build those brands and make those brands significant in the markets and the communities we're in.
It's interesting how the name thing played out. We did not start out to do that, but because the lead time required in these things, we just thought it was better, let's skip that for now and let's just go with PWHL and the location. And that has had an amazing unintended consequence of every time anyone has talked about any of our teams all year, you had to say PWHL. So our league has gotten more exposure in the first year of its existence than any league in history because they kept repeating our name. Again, we didn't plan it that way. It just worked out that way. And it was about mid-season when I started hearing from fans and players, we kind of like the name the way it is. We're going to have team names. And I invite people to adopt those names too, but you can feel free to continue to call it what you've always called it. And we will be selling merchandise with both of those names. So these names aren't going away because they have become popular. But for those of you who like team names, we'll be addressing that as well.
Sometimes it's hard in the intensity of what we've been doing to appreciate and look back and think about all the great things that have happened because we're continually looking at the next thing we need to do. But I will say I think it was last night, was it? 2 nights? Last night.
Wednesday? I don't remember.
We were all in New York and won the Sport Business Journal Award, which was, I think one of the most special moments for all of us. I said to some friends and family, I'd never been a part of something like that. I've been part of championships where you're on the ice and you're trying to win, but to care so much about something that you're not out on the ice trying to win, it was a really special moment for a lot of us, and I think that gave us an opportunity to reflect back on everything that has happened this year and how significant, an impact we've had. So I think across the culture of our organization, we try to remind each other to take those moments in and appreciate all of them. But I can say it's hard when we're moving at the pace that we're moving at constantly.
And for me, this is just pure joy tonight to not have my livelihood on the line with who wins or loses. I don't get to do that very often. So I'm just going to enjoy seeing the best women hockey players in the world competing as hard as they can for a championship.
And I'll answer the second part of your question around the incoming players. Of course, I feel like we have incredible talent on the ice every night now, but putting the best on the ice is about putting the best on the ice, and we know that there's a number of incoming players. So it will get more challenging. Good players will have a hard time making this league, but when you think about the product we're going to put on the ice, it's going to continue to get significantly better every single year as we welcome in newer and younger players. And at some point, we would look to add teams, when that depth of talent is at the right place in our minds. But right now, it's just exciting to look at all the new and fresh talent that's going to step in. Well, I think the first thing is representation, and we have some incredible athletes in our league that continue to be great role models, be active in their communities. And, when you think of Sophie Jakes and Sarah Nurse and players that continue to give back and become something that young girls can look up to, I think all of our players do that for a lot of different communities of people. And I think the one thing that's really special about our league, and I feel it every game I'm at, it doesn't matter what market we're in, is there's a sense of inclusivity in our buildings, and people are here and they're excited and they're happy and they feel welcome regardless of who they are, and they feel free to be themselves. I've talked to many, many people that have never felt this way in a hockey rink. So we'll continue to do that on the culture side. I think what we want to do is continue to grow the game for young girls, and I don't think there's any limits on who those young girls are. We want people to fall in love with the game, and I think we approach the business side and our staffing the same way. We want to bring people into the game that love the game, and we want to bring people in that represent different communities.
When the season's over, we're going to review everything, every city, every venue that we're in, and we're going to try to improve. We're aware of the New York situation. It wasn't ideal this year, but we'll see what ways we can improve the situation. We're not ready to say here today which way we're going to go or what we're going to do, but I can tell you that's certainly one of the things we're going to spend a lot of time looking at.
What do you guys think is the ideal venue situation?
The ideal venue situation is to play in the biggest NHL venue in every city and merit playing there. We're not always there yet in every market, but in big markets, as you might know, the big venues are there because there are a lot of events and a lot of teams in those cities, and that gets into availabilities. We don't want to be in a big venue but having to play on a Tuesday morning, right? You know, we want to play on weekend nights or nights in general. So it's a complicated matrix of considerations that goes into where we choose to play, when we choose to play, what's good for the team, what's good for the visiting team, how we travel. It's complicated. It's complicated with 6. It'll be more complicated the bigger we grow and the more games we have, but we're ready for it. Those will be good problems, but we don't ignore it. We're thinking about all of it. And you saw in this year, when we found an opportunity that we thought would work for our fans in cities where we could go to big venues, we did it. I would call them experiments, and in general, I would say those experiments were all wildly successful. So we'll let those serve as sometime this summer. I don't have an exact time, but yeah, you should be counting the days. I will tell you that, yes, it exceeded what we thought we were going to. It exceeded our early projections. But that's partially, I think, because we made the strategy decision to also greatly exceed our expected expenses. Let me give you an example. You know how women's hockey games have been broadcast in the past, all right? Single camera from upstairs. That isn't what we chose to do. We made a conscious choice to spend a lot of money to make it a major league professional broadcast. And I think all of you who watched our games would agree that's what we delivered. It was expensive, but we think it's going to pay off for us in the long run. Additionally, we didn't hire 3 people and slowly build each franchise. We went right to 120 people by opening day, and now we're over 200 people. So that was a lot of expense that we didn't expect right away, but we said, you know what, we're all in. So let's do year 4 expenses in year 1. So yeah, and that resulted in a lot more revenue. And that's why we think our decision to invest in the league, which is what I call expenses, was the right one. We're on the right track. The investments we made are paying off.
Yeah, I think we're at a place right now where we're considering all the options. We saw great success in the playoffs at Coca-Cola Coliseum, but we also had a great successful season at Mattamy. So in keeping in line with what Stan had mentioned, there's a lot of things that come into play when you're looking at venues, including availability and tenants and nights of the week, and so there's lots to consider. We're exploring all those options right now, and hopefully we'll have a decision on that soon.
I was at baseball meetings this week, and I had a conversation with a major league team owner in a city not in our league, but who wants to be in our league, and he controls a very large venue, and as much as he wants us there right away, he said, yeah, the problem we have is availabilities because they have so much going on in big buildings in big cities. I get that. I used to run a big building in a big city, so I know how that is, but we can work through problems like that typically. And so availability is always going to be a prime need. It's not just the city, it's not just the demographics, it's not just the amount of junior hockey being played. It's also, do you have a good venue, a professional venue, that is big enough to satisfy the potential crowd you're going to have, and do you have dates that will work? having a big venue, as I said, on Tuesday morning doesn't get us where we need to go.
Well, in terms of number of games, the league will go up to 30, and that's in our CBA, that 24 regular season games in the inaugural season will move to a minimum of 30 next year. In terms of neutral site games, we do expect that there will be more of those next season. I don't have a timeline for our schedule to be done yet, but we do expect, as I said, more games, more neutral site games next season. Yeah, I don't know if you'll ever get a collection of people that all agree on officiating in any sport, in any league. So we are actually really happy with where we're at. We set out initially to find the best officials we could find. We worked closely with the NHL, the AHL, Hockey Canada, USA Hockey to select the top officials. We obviously also adjusted the standard of play to this league. It's not full body checking, but there is an increased level of physicality in the game. And so I think we spent the early months of the season really trying to figure out, where that line is and get people comfortable with it. Now where we're at, I think players have figured it out to some extent. Of course, everyone's not always going to agree on that, but the way I see the players playing the game now and their awareness of positions they're in, and to be ready for that physicality has changed. So are we right there? We're probably not right there yet, but we're really happy with where we're at. We think the officials have done an incredible job in the league this season.
What I've learned is it's hard to start a new league, even with the help and professional expertise of the NBA. It wasn't automatic. It took a lot of time and a lot of money. I think they are really hitting their stride now, maybe for the same reason we are, because it's time, finally. As you've heard me say, last year was the 50th anniversary of Title IX. Last year was the 50th anniversary of Billie Jean King's fight for equal prize money at the U.S. Open. It's time for all of this, and so the WNBA is finally reaching its time, and it could be as simple, Haley, as time just wasn't right in the minds of the population or in the minds of the media. But there's no question that the time is right now, and I think we're going to be able to get up to speed, up and running, and successful quicker than any other leagues have ever done.
Yeah, I think trying to figure out what the right solution for that is in the short term is at the top of our list of things to do. Building one league in 9 months, but to try to build a whole ecosystem for hockey is just not something that we can do right now. But we are thinking creatively around places that players could play if they don't end up on our 23 or 26 player rosters next season. So it's a bit of a work in progress, but in speaking to a number of stakeholders, there's many people that want to figure out a solution to this so that we can keep more women playing the game at the highest level. I think that we are very different from most men's leagues. I think we're very different than most women's leagues. So, I'd like to see us stand on our own as a sports league. But in saying that, I also believe that, this time for women's sports and the success of one feels like it's a success of all. We're all big fans and collaborate with folks in the WNBA and the NWSL, and it feels like we are all working together to raise women's sports. So I don't know if that's an appropriate answer, but I feel like it's a little of both.
I have one investor. He's ecstatic. And he was with us Wednesday night as we got this SBJ award, and couldn't be happier and prouder about how we've done. He's as surprised as any of the rest of us. He's the one who gave me this assignment, not having any idea how it would turn out, because I had no idea, but I have 100%, we all have 100% of his support. And as I said, this is not a short-term thing, it's not a long-term thing, it's a permanent thing, and he's all in.
So still working through a lot of the details around that, but one thing we do know is where the floor and the ceiling on the salaries are. So per the CBA, there's a 3% escalator on that, so that doesn't change. But we're still working through some of the details alongside the PWHL PA to finalize those last details. Special events, nothing we're ready to announce yet, but obviously lots of consideration and thoughts and ideas on the table. So we'll continue to work towards those. Sorry, Paul, what was the first part of that question?
7 games?
Oh, the 7
Best of
games.
7
that.
series.
Yeah, this is a little bit like getting asked about expansion 3 months in. Great question. Would I love to see a best of 7 series? We're sitting here 1-1. You know, of course I would, but I think we're really excited about the format we have now. This is new for women's hockey. You know, even the best players in the world who won multiple Olympic gold medals have not played in a best of 5 series, and I think we're seeing it's challenging. There's a lot of travel, there's fatigue, the volume that they're experiencing is huge, and so I think we're really good where we're at right now. Somewhere along the line, I could see us maybe expanding, but again, year one, I think the 2 best of 5 series has been a really great format for us.
And that comes from someone who's won 4 Olympic gold medals. So,
I've never played in a best of 5 series either.
yeah, exactly.
Any final questions in the room? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a heavy lift for a lot of people in this league, including our GMs, and we think that they've done a really incredible job this season with all 6 teams. They were able to have a little bit of flexibility in terms of putting their staff together and the type of people they needed. There was obviously some that they needed to have, head coaches, assistant coaches, medical folks, but there was some flexibility in how they built the rest of their staff. So we do have a couple of teams that do have someone that takes on that role. Not all do, but I think the point is valid that there's a lot of work. But that's not this league alone. Being the GM of a sports team in any league is a really, really big job with a lot of work to do. So we'll continue to support them. But I think, as we grow, of course, I think our teams will expand as well.